Hear me now?
Yes.
It's happened once before, and you hear me now, but I don't hear you well. You have to speak louder. Daniel, do you hear me? Daniel,
One.
hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, now I can't really hear you. Let me just do this one time.
You can't hear me? Oh, now I can't hear you. No, I can't hear you.
And, okay, and you hear me now, right?
Yeah. You don't really have to hear me. I mean, I can just, talk to you later or something.
Okay. It's a strange thing. Okay. Today we're going to start Nun Beis, Amud Beis. On the bottom of the page there's a Mishnah. Thank Hashem that we're able to learn every day. It's just a learning. It's just a learning. We have this in English. Okay, the Mishnah says, Amatama, someone that makes impure his friend's items, probably truma. When they become impure, then they become inedible, halachically. Or hamadama, someone that mixes his friend's truma together with chulin. Now, what happens then is that the chulin becomes inedible to anyone except for a Kohen. So the market price on that goes down because the only clientele is going to be Kohanim. It's truma mixed with chulin, so the chulin can't be eaten by anyone except for Kohanim. Instead of having a market, truma, yeah, saying it should be batal. Truma is batal than 100. This is talking about less than 100.
You have one drop. The rest have it full in.
If it's less than 1 in 100, then if it's less than 1 in 100, then it's batal. But if it's more than 1 in 100, then it's called jimua. Yeah. But if it's more than that, then it would be all considered truma. And then b'menasich. Menasich is when someone pours wine for avodah zarah. We're not going to say pours. We're going to say that he stirs it with his hand. So in all of these cases, the shegeg, if he does these things by mistake, in other words, he's causing a damage by mistake, he's going to be pater. He's exempt from paying, and b'mezid is going to be chayav. If that's on purpose, he's chayav. Let's see. There's 2 ways of learning this Mishnah. To learn that really he should be pater. Really he should be pater. But we make a knas on him because he did it b'mezid, make him chayav. The other way is that really he should be chayav. But for whatever reason, we say that he's pater. How can we differentiate between shegig and b'mezid? Shegig means by mistake. Unintentional doesn't mean mistake. Unintentional. But we start off, machlekes Rav and Shmuel, regarding menasich. Itzmar, we have a statement. Menasich, when it comes to pouring wine for avodah zarah, which we're translating here not as pouring, but as stirring it with his hand. A non-Jew? No, it's a Jewish person that's stirring the wine for avodah zarah. Rav says menasich mamish. Rav says that he's actually doing that. He's actually stirring it with his hand. Shmuel Amar Ma'arav. Shmuel says he's not actually doing the avera of stirring it for avodah zarah. He's only mixing avodah zarah wine into it, just like the other 2 cases. What were the other 2 cases? Metama means that he made it impure. Medama is that he mixed truma with chulin. So here also he's mixing wine that was used for avodah zarah together with regular wine, and all of what happens, everything becomes aser. So Manda Amar Ma'arev, one that says that he's mixing it together, which is the opinion of Shmuel. My time Amar Manasseh. What's wrong with saying Manasseh means Manasseh? Manasseh means to pour or to stir it for Avodah Zarah. Amalach. So Shmuel would say to you, Manasseh Kamlei B'derabminei. If he's actually worshiping Avodah Zarah right now, we have a rule that whenever you have two prohibitions at the same time, one of them is capital punishment, and one of them is a monetary. One of them incurs a monetary penalty. So you only give him the more severe punishment. Shmuel would say that over here, because he's going to get capital punishment, because he's worshiping Avodah Zarah, pouring the wine or stirring the wine for Avodah Zarah, he's not going to have to pay the penalty, the price of damaging. So it can't be that he's actually worshiping Avodah Zarah. It must be that there was Avodah Zarah was worshipped before, and he takes some of that Avodah Zarah wine and mixes it into this wine. Yeah, that's a good point. Or else he won't be chayev. Beidach, what does Rav say? Rav says, "Kid Rabbi Yirmiyah." Rabbi Yirmiyah is going to follow the opinion of Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Yirmiyah says, "Mishasak bo the kana, it's chayev benafshe lehaviyat shas nisa." That really, he's going to be chayev for this once he lifts it up. He's chayev to pay for the wine. He's chayev because that's when he stole it. When does he violate the laws of Avodah Zarah? That's when he stirs it. So those two halachas are coming separately. Yeah. Stirs it or pours it. Stirring
Once he
it.
stirs it, it becomes.
So when does he get the capital punishment? When he stirs it or pours it. When does he have to pay for it? When he lifted it up, which was 5 minutes ago. So it's not a simultaneous that the capital punishment and the monetary penalty. It's not coming at the same time. I worshiping an idol.
Wine.
I know, but wine is being poured or stirred in front of an idol. He sets up an idol and he starts pouring the wine. Okay, we didn't describe the idol here. According to the one that says that it literally means that he's stirring the wine or pouring the wine for an idol, my time why didn't he say that he's just mixing the two wines together? Mixing a kosher wine with a non-kosher wine, which basically means that he's invalidating for use or making and not unacceptable for use the kosher wine. Why don't you just say that he poured it? I'm sorry. The one that says that he poured it, why doesn't he say that he mixed it in, that he mixed the two wines together? So Amar Lach, so Rav that says that he poured it, he would say that the reason why he didn't do that is because Ma'arev Hainu Medam, because then it would be the same thing as mixing the chuma with chulin. We already have a case of mixing. And making a mixture that makes it forbidden. We already have one case. We don't need another case. So therefore, we have a new case of pouring wine. V'idach, good question. What does Shmuel say? Medam and Manasseh, according to Shmuel, are the same thing. He says Knasahu. We're dealing here with a fine. We're on top of Nun Gimel 33. You can't learn one fine to another fine. Each fine is different. You can't say when you're dealing with penalties, you can't say, well, it's automatically the same thing. The penalties is made up to stop someone from doing something. So you can't say, oh, if we give a penalty for this, we should give a penalty for that, because maybe this is something that we're more concerned about, less concerned about, it's more common. It's not an automatic thing. Find a precedent, so therefore the other one is exactly the same. They have a comment there on that. That's Unique circumstance. Okay.
In the modern world, it's the opposite. We treat him like that. Treat you like him. But I'm an individual. Well, it's their way of expressing
Okay, now we say, but there is an opinion that says that we can learn one fine from another fine, which is the opinion of Rav, and that's why Rav was concerned with having two cases that are very similar. Why do you need two cases that are similar? If one, you can learn one from the other. Laman di yalef knasa miknasa, kol hani lamali. Well, if it would actually be Rav, then that would be different, because Rav says that Menasech means that he poured it, he didn't mix it. It's talking about according to Shmuel, according to an opinion that says you can learn a knas from a knas. I'm not sure who that opinion is. Why do we need these two cases? It says shricha, it's necessary. Itana matama, or all, why do we need all these cases? Actually, it says that it's Rav. It's Rav. So Rav says, nevertheless, even though it's not exactly the same case, but I can learn one knas from another knas. So if I would give a knas from Matama, should give it also for Madama, and I should give it also for Manasa. If I would give a fine for making it impure, I should give a fine also for mixing chulin with truma with chulin. I should give a fine also for pouring the wine or stirring the wine. It says no. Itana Matama, if it would just say the case of making someone's produce impure. So each truma have, if the produce that we're dealing with is truma. So Hava Amina, I could have thought Bishum the Kamasa the Lagamri. Over there, we're going to make a fine because that's a very unique case. He's literally making it inedible. Truma, totally inedible. And so that's why we're going to impose a fine. However, and if we're dealing with a case where he's making chulin tamei, because there's a prohibition of making food tamei in Eretz Yisrael, even if it's chulin. Chulin means mundane food, and that has to do with the people that would keep their chulin pure. Remember, we had people in Israel, even after the times, that would keep their chulin, their produce pure, and there was a prohibition of making it impure. So now, because there's a violation, besides that you're damaging your friend, but there's also a decree that the violation that he's violating. So that's why we impose the fine. Aval medama, but when he's just mixing truma with chulin, which is not a violation, a maloi, and also he's not making it inedible. It is edible. It's edible just to a kohen. So he reduces the clientele, but it doesn't mean that it's inedible. So I think, well, over there maybe there's no fine.
So you're saying it's still truma?
He mixes it with truma with chulin. It just needs to be eaten
By a kohen.
By a kohen. So
Yeah,
which means that
quantities.
Yeah, well, it's talking about that it's less than the case where it would be nullified. It's 2 into 100 instead of 1 into 100.
As long as it's less than truma, 51% truma, 49% chulin, it would still be considered truma.
Yeah, much more than that. Could be even 2% truma, 98% chulin, and still considered truma. Yeah.
Wow. That reminds me of like the Rebbe's one.
Yeah. Right. Say Malay, I would say that there's no fine there. Yashmin and Madam and if it would teach me about the mixture of chulin and truma, because that could be something that's very common. And they didn't put a fine on it. Sorry. And therefore they did put a fine on it. They did put a fine on it because it's something common and they want people to avoid that. Aval matama, but making something impure, that's not so common. In Malay, maybe they never put a fine on that. Who does that anyway? Biyashmin matama madam, and if we would have said those two, which means making something impure, and also mixing truma and chulin, because over there you don't have law of giving the person the capital punishment so that he shouldn't have to, now once he has capital punishment, he doesn't have to pay the fine. Aval menasech. But if he's pouring wine for Avodah Zarah, or he's stirring the wine for Avodah Zarah, the kimlei b'deram minei, because over there he does have capital punishment. So Imalaya would say that there is no penalty, monetary penalty. Mashman Kadir B'Yirmiyah, so it comes to teach us that there is a penalty. What's the penalty? Penalty is that he has to pay the money. Why? Because of Rabbi Yirmiyah. That says Rabbi Yirmiyah that we learned before. Rabbi Yirmiyah says that's because it's the prohibition of worshiping the idol, and the violation of stealing, and not exactly at the same moment. Where he steals it when he lifts it up to steal it, and he violates the worshiping the idol only a few minutes later when he stirs it. So we would say that besides for capital punishment, he also has to pay the fine.
What good is a monetary penalty?
Die?
Capital punishment. Destroy his loss of money while he's dead.
Maybe the inheritors don't get it.
No, you cancel the monetary fine. It's in time.
Right.
This one's first.
Right.
Make sure you do the idol first.
Yeah, but I think even if you did the idol first, the theft later, I think if it's not simultaneous, I think it's still get the fine. I think so. Even though he's due to capital punishment, I don't think it takes away the fine. It's just like that. Right, the sequence doesn't matter. It has to be simultaneous as well. Okay, now this that was taught by Avua der Ravavan. Not like this. Originally they said Hametame v'amenasach. Two cases that are chayev, someone that contaminates produce, probably truma, and v'amenasach is someone that pours the wine or stirs the wine. That is going to be chayev. And chazru laimar, then they returned and they said they added in one more case. They said afa medama. Also medama, also the mixing of the truma and chulin. Kol hani lamali. According to him, why do we need to have these cases? Once you had menasech, which means that we have the chiddush of kamlei b'dramine. Once we have truma, truma says that it's totally inedible. What do I need? What do I need, medama? What is that case adding? Tzricha, it's necessary. Yashmin metama. If we would just say metama, so then that would tell me that's only because you don't have a capital punishment by contaminating food, right? But by menasach, where there is a capital punishment, I would say that you can't have both punishments at the same time. So it tells me that no, you can have the both punishments because it's not the same time. And if it would just tell me menasech, okay, now the Gemara switches a little bit over here. It says when you're worshiping an idol with this wine, then it's totally inedible, and you can't even have any use for this wine. You can't do anything with it. It's the problem people get around the holidays. They get the workplaces, they get non-kosher wine as a gift. Yeah, which is a problem because really, of course, you can't drink it. It's not kosher. But you say, okay, I'll give it to the guy that works right next to me. So, I can't drink it here. Why don't you have it? You can't do that either. You're not supposed to benefit from it. You give it to your neighbor.
But if you gift it to him and not get anything.
So when you gift it to him, you do get something in return. He owes you a favor. Yeah, that's the problem. When it comes to chametz on Pesach, you're not even allowed to feed it to an animal because people go out and feed animals. You see, they should feed the birds. They say it's like an enjoyable pastime.
Wow.
can't even do that. So this becomes so basically we're saying if it would say menasech, so it'd say, well, you know why there's a fine on that? You know why we make the person pay? Because the benefit that the real owners gets from this now is zero. He really messed this thing up. Abel metame, but when he just makes it impure, before we said this case was there also is zero benefit, but it's not really zero. He can't eat it 100% because truma that becomes tame is totally inedible. However, it's not it's not totally lost. Why not? Why is it not lost? Because you can still burn it. Let's say it was oil. You can burn that oil. Or it's possible to feed it to an animal of the coin. Coin's animal is allowed to. I would say that there is no fine there. Okay, so it has to tell me matam as well that there's a fine if we're talking about someone damaging someone else over here, right? This is a case of damages. And if it would say those two cases, mishum de hefsin meruba, because that's a big loss. Aval medama, but mixing truma with chul and the hefsid buat, it's not a big loss. It's a loss because the clientele goes down, so it's being sold for a lower price. We don't have the same free market, right? Open market. It can only be sold to certain to Kohanim.
They're saying that truma loses value.
Well, the chulin loses its value. The truma always had a lower value, but the chulin now has a lower value.
And this is if he's trying to resell it or something because it's much lower or something.
Right. Right. Remember there was a sefer. Can you say there was a sefer in one of the farm stores in Crown Heights? I knew they would never sell it. It was not someone that was like very favored in the Bavish. Sefer was there in this farm store. Anyway, I went in. I told them, "You're never going to sell this. Put a good price on it. We'll discuss it." They. You're not going to sell it here. You're in the wrong location. Anyway, they did. They put a good price. But, yeah. Can't say. Yeah. The Kohen and have to pay less for their aliyahs. They probably do pay less for the aliyah. The Kohen aliyah is probably less than the shlishi aliyah. Is that correct? Anyone buy aliyahs?
Tennis breakers. I don't know.
It usually is less. It usually is less. It's the bidding here. Okay, so Medama de hefsid mur emalai sutricha. So it's necessary to have all of those cases. Okay, Amar Chizkiah. Chizkiah is a Amira in Eretz Yisrael. I think he's a son of Reb Chia, right? Yeah, the two sons. Chizkiah and what's the other one? Yehuda. So Reb Chia has Chizkiah and Yehuda. He has these two sons. So Chizkiah is going to now argue with Rabbi Yechon. We're going to have, this is Amiram in Eretz Yisrael. Amar Chizkiah, V'ai Torah, means according to the biblical law, Echad Shegig V'echad Mezid Chayev. Really, it doesn't matter how this was performed, this damage that was done, and it's going to be Chayev, whether it was done intentionally or unintentionally. My timer. What's the reason why he's Chayev? Because Hezek Shein and Nikar Shmei Hezek. Chizkiah says that it's considered a Hezek. I want to try to remember this. You say Hezek Shein and Nikar Shmei Hezek. Okay, whatever. So why did they say that B'Shegig Yipat? It's unintentional. Why did they say the Yipat? The reason is Kadesh Sheidiu. Very interesting. Look. Person's going to have to pay money for the damage that he caused. No one even knows the damage. So he's never going to tell the guy that he did it. Okay, 1 second. Let's go a little further. We had some questions on this. But basically, if you did it unintentionally, we say that you're potter. Go tell the guy that you did it, and so that he doesn't eat it, right? Because it's prohibited. But you don't have to pay for it. That way, he won't refrain from telling him. Won't withhold that information. When it says if that's the case, I feel a b'mezid nami. Then even if he did it intentionally, we should tell him that he's potter, so that he doesn't, hold back from telling him that information. It says no. His whole point, he did it intentionally. His whole point was to cause damage. Now you think he's not going to tell him? There's going to be no damage if he doesn't tell him. Right? The whole point is he wants him to know. Okay. Rabbi Yochanan says exactly the opposite. From a biblical level, it is pater. You're exempt, whether you did it intentionally or unintentionally. My time, what's the reason? We don't say that it's a hazard, a damage, unrecognizable damage. You can't see, looking at the item, that something happened here. So what is the reason we said that he's chayiv if he does it b'mezid, if he's really exempt? It's a unrecognizable damage. Because we don't want people to just take this lightly. We said if you do it on purpose, then you're going to be chayiv. Otherwise, people could walk around, think it's funny. You don't have to pay. You just contaminate everyone's things, and then they don't have to pay. Yeah.
So Muncie, when it was a case where there was a portrait, that is not the case. So the person who consumed it doesn't know that it was right. Intentionally.
So should he have to pay for everyone's kitchen? That's what you're saying. We should have to pay for everyone's kitchen. But when there was a scandal with someone selling non-kosher chickens under title that it was kosher, under labels, kosher labels. So sounds like a hazard. Sounds like it would be chayav, but that would be chayav only according to Chizkiah. According to Rabbi Yochanan, he should have to pay anyway. It looks like the halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan. That has a chain and Nikolashmi has it, but we do say that he's chayav if it's b'mezid. So you're saying even according to Rabbi Yochanan, he should be chayav because he knew what he was doing. Okay. Tanan. It's taught in a Mishnah. Hakayanim. This is the classic case of this. Hakayanim shepaglu b'mikdash. A kayan that has the wrong thoughts when he's bringing a sacrifice in the Beis Hamikdash. So he has thoughts that he's going to sprinkle the blood at the time that is out of the allocated time that's allowed for the sacrifice. He's going to eat it out of that allocated time. So, mezidin chayav. If they do it b'mezid, then they're chayav. They intentionally have the wrong thought. B'tani Allah, and we're taught in a brayso on that Mishnah, that the reason why they're chayav is because of the betterment of the world. And if we're going to say that we're going to pass like Chizkiah, we say that damage that's unrecognizable is considered a real damage. It should have said the opposite. It should have said that the reason why shogeg is pater is because of tikkun olam for the betterment of the world, because we want the person to go and tell the guy that, by the way, your carbon wasn't good. He's going to have to pay for the carbon that he just messed up. He's not even going to tell the guy. So the language here is wrong according to Chizkiah. The proof to Rabbi Yochanan. Achinami Kamar, the Gemara says that's exactly what it's saying. Meizidin chayavin, hashagigim peturim pnei tikkun olam. You're supposed to be medayik. You're supposed to deduce. What does this imply? It's not Mezidin Chayavin because of Tikkun Olam, that if it's on purpose, that's why he's obligated for the betterment of the world. No. He's on purpose. If it's done intentionally, he's Chayav, which tells me that if he does it unintentionally, he's exempt. Why is he exempt? We'll take Tikkun Olam. We add in a little phrase that makes it work, according to Piskia. Masiv Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar has a question. Someone does work with a paraduma, big loss. Paraduma was not allowed to do any work. You're not allowed to put a yoke on it. And if you did, you just invalidated it from becoming a paraduma, the red heifer. So, if someone does work with the paraduma, with the water of the paraduma, we'll see in a moment that he's talking about that he uses it as a weight. The water, he knows its weight, and then you can, on a balance scale, you could put this on one side, on the other side you can put the things that you're selling. So you're using the water of the paraduma as part of the balance. Or if you actually have the animal do work, you put a yoke on it or something. The rule is he's exempt. He's exempt from court, and he's only chayav in the heavenly court. If you're going to say like chizkiah, that holds that this is a damage that's visible, that's an invisible damage, an unrecognizable damage is still considered a damage. B'dini adam nami l'chayev, should also be chayev b'dini adam. Gemara says, "Who meisav lam hu mefarakla." Rabbi Elazar asked the question. Rabbi Elazar also answers that parashech nisa l'rav kal manash tinek b'tidash. Talking about over here that it wasn't really work. Brought the animal into this pen to be able to nurse. While it was there, it was also going to crush the husk, the kernels, that be able to take the chaff off. They would crush it. You can imagine, you don't really look at this stuff. But let's say you had to separate the peanuts from the shells. So it would be a big job. Get a lot of kids. They're only selling, to crack the peanut. But what the way they would do it is they would put it in a pile and they would put a board on top and someone would step on it. Because they had a cow step on it. And then they would take it, throw it into the wind. And all the chaff would blow away and the peanuts would come back down. And that's how they would separate it. Then afterwards they would do butter. They would separate the little pieces that fell back. But so what they were gaining by this paraduma was that it was threshing the grain. It wasn't peanuts, it was grain. So it was threshing the grain, but that was not that was something that was also his intention, but you can't really recognize that intention. So it's considered you're causing the damage, but it's not. The issue over there is not that the damage isn't recognizable. The issue over there is that it was a caused, it wasn't a direct damage. It wasn't done directly. He really brought him in to nurse. And while he was there, he also does this. So because it's considered a grama. Grama is causative. What's considered to cause a damage? He doesn't lock his friend's door, something when he was at the house. Puts a ladder up to a location where the squirrels the cats can reach the birds. So that's it. He caused the damage, but he didn't actually do the damage. So over here, because it's only all in his mind, what was your intention when you brought it in? Was your intention to thresh or is your intention to nurse? So That's considered a causative. Okay. So, and what was mechatas shekel by mishkalis? And the mechatas was that you end up using it just as a weight. Now, that sounds like it's a real damage. Let me see how they say it in yours. Where it says 1 second, Vamarava, mechatas shekel by mishkalis is ksheira. That's not even a damage at all. That's not considered work. Like kasha, habegufan habekenegdan. Okay, let me take a look at your. Okay, habegufan. Rashi explained. Let's see. 1 second. When he weighs the weights with water, he weighs weights with the water, which is not an actual task performed with the water. Okay, 1 second. He said that if that's the case, then it's not even prohibited. It's not, the water's not disqualified. So they have a comment here. Rashi explains that the term with the water itself means that he places the water into a utensil with scale markings and then puts an object into the water. Based on the amount of water that is displaced, he can calculate the weight of the object. The term against the water means that the water of purification is placed on one side of a scale and the object to be weighed is placed on the other side. So that means he's doing work with the object, with the water, because he's using it as a balance. When he's using it as water displacement, so he's not doing work with the object, he's just looking at the water rise.
That just measures volume.
Right. Yeah, it would really be measuring volume. I don't know why it says he can calculate the weight of the object. Rabbeinu Kreskas Vidal cites the explanation of his teacher, the Ra'ah, Rabban Levi, that the primary deficiency in weighing an object with the water itself, according to Rashi's explanation, is that the moisture exudes from the object being weighed. Example, the liquid in meat mixes with the water, and this mixture disqualifies the water. Others explain term with the water itself means that he performs the task with the water itself. He washes an item with the water. Ibn Hananel makes a difference between if he puts the water on first or if he puts the other object on first. Begufan, if he doesn't work with the object itself, which we had a bunch of explanations, then Maisa Kavod Bu, then he's doing an action with it, which is a problem. Okay, if Hezek in a nikr shmei hezek according to Chizkiah, then he should be chayav in court itself. Rather, both cases we're talking about when he wasn't actually using the water itself for the action, which according to Rashi would mean he wasn't using it as a side on the scale and the balance. He was just using it as water displacement. It depends if he took his mind off it from guarding it. The rule by the paraduma is that the red heifer is that you have to be concentrating on keeping it pure the whole time. It says lemeshmeres. It has to be guarded. Now, if you start doing other things with it, then you may forget that you're supposed to be guarding it from becoming impure. So the disqualification here is not the work that's being done with it, it's the losing the concentration that is going to disqualify. And that we're saying is not considered a direct damage. It doesn't have to do. What we're trying to do over here is we're trying to avoid having proofs to either Chizkiah or Rabbi Yochanan, because then that would mess up the. Like, how do you have that opinion if you have a clear price that says differently? So what we're doing is anytime we have a proof, we're saying it's not talking about Hezek, Shein, and Nikar, it's talking about Grama. The reason why I use exempt is because it was indirect, not because it wasn't a recognizable damage. Masav Rav Papa, yeah. Papa asks the question. Gazal, Matbeya, Venifsal. If someone steals a coin, when it comes time to giving it back, that coin is not being used. The currency has been changed. That coin is invalid. Bitcoin. Huh? You serious? Cash will be nothing. They might get rid of all cash.
In other countries. It gives them control over.
Yeah, it's easy to control. In the prisons, they don't have any cash. They just have like a card.
Prism.
Uh-huh. Oh, really? Uh-huh. Okay. Everything will be tracked. So
That argument he said, that because it's so little that's actually cash today, that's the personal part. Big money when you buy a house, okay, that goes to the banks, that's all reported. But the individual private.
So if he steals a coin and then it goes out of currency, truma v'nitmis. He steals truma, and when it comes time to giving it back, it was already impure. Chametz v'avril of Pesach. Steals a box of cookies before Pesach, and then Pesach comes by. He says, "You know what? I feel bad. Here, take it back." Now, the guy can't eat it. The guy, there's nothing he can do with it. I'm like, the truth is, though, he can say, "Harishlach lefanecha." Here it is. And if you say that an unrecognizable damage is considered yes a damage, high gazlano, then he's considered a thief, and he has to pay for the value if it's considered damage. It says tiyufta. That's a very strong question. Let's say that this is actually an earlier machlekes, goes back to an earlier generation. If someone makes someone else's produce impure, or he mixes truma with chulin, or he pours wine or stirs wine for avodah zarah, chayev. Whether it's intentional or unintentional, it's chayev. That's what Reb Meir says. Rabbi Yehuda says no. So it would turn out, according to this, that our Mishnah was the view of Rabbi Yehuda, not the view of Reb Meir. And my love, let's say that this is the machlekes. Reb Meir holds that you're always chayev because hezek shein nikar shmei hezek. He holds that hezek shein nikar, that an unrecognizable damage is considered a damage. Umar Sava, Rabbi Yehuda holds leish shmei hezek. So it turns out that we have Chizkiah has support from Reb Meir. Yeah, unrecognizable damage. Well, the guy is gonna tell him, look, let's say the halacha is that if you don't have the right concentration in your tefillin, the tefillin become puzzle. Let's say that was the halacha. Someone puts on your tefillin, which he's allowed to do, doesn't have the right concentration, he takes them off, he gives them back to him. Let's say that would be the rule. It's not the rule. There was an opinion like that. It's not the halacha. But let's say that was the rule. So then it would be a hezek shein nikar, and it would be a machlekes chizkiah. If according to Chizkiah, you would have to buy a new film. I guess the case would be if someone is staying in your house and they use the I don't know, your blender or something for fleishik soup, and you want to use it every morning for your smoothie with milk. So they say, it's fine, it's clean. So what's wrong with it? It looks exactly the same, right? So 1 second. According to Reb Meir, it doesn't matter, intentional or unintentional. It's always chayev. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it makes a difference. We're saying, according to Rabbi Meir, it doesn't matter because Hezek Shein Nicker Shmei Hezek. This is considered a damage. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's Leish Shmei Hezek. Well, so why do we say that you have to pay if it's b'mezid, if it's intentional? So that's a fine. We don't want people doing that. So we institute a fine, even though on a biblical level, there's no problem. It's not considered that he owes money. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Rav Nachman Yitzchak says it's not so. Everyone holds like Rabbi Yochanan that a unrecognizable damage is not considered a damage. Here we have a different machlekes. When we say that we impose a fine on someone that does it intentional, there are opinions that hold that since if you do it intentional, there's a fine if you do it intentional. We impose a fine if you do it intentionally. Since we impose a fine if you do it intentionally, then we come along like this. We say that if there's a fine if you do it intentionally, the person may say that I did it unintentionally.
Right.
Sorry, I didn't realize. Says, oh, was that the Milchak one? I didn't realize. So we put a fine on the shegig as well because we will never be able to get the truth out of this.
Yeah, never.
So what we'll say is like this. The Mar Savar, according to Reb Meir, that we do impose the fine on even on a shegig, even on unintentional. Mar Savar Rabbi Yehuda holds that no, there's a big difference. Like Kansa Shegig to Mesa, we don't impose a fine from shegig onto Mesa. Okay. We don't impose the fine. Let's go further so we don't get stuck in this. The Gemara says, if that's the case, then you have a contradiction between Reb Meir and Reb Meir himself, and a contradiction between Reb Yehuda and Reb Yehuda himself regarding Shabbos. The Tanya was taught on Shabbos. It was taught in a brayso, mevashel b'Shabbos, someone that cooks literally on Shabbos, b'shogeg, but he didn't realize that it was Shabbos. So then it was unintentional. Yoichal, he's allowed to eat it even on Shabbos. He's allowed to eat what he cooked. It was by mistake. Amazing, but if he cooked on purpose, then lo yoichal, he's not allowed to eat it. Reb Meir. Reb Meir clearly does not impose the fine on shogeg because of mezid, which he does by hezek shein and nicker. So we see that we have a contradiction in Reb Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda says that if it was unintentional, then after Shabbos he's allowed to eat it. But mezid, if it was done intentionally, then lo yechal lamis, he's never allowed to eat it. Okay. Now, what did Rabbi Yehuda say by us? Rabbi Yehuda says that like Hansa Shegig got the mezid, we don't impose the fine. And over here, both of them are usher, even b'shegig. Rabbi Yochanan Sandler b'shegig yechal l'mitzvah Shabbos la'acherim b'leilai. Rabbi Yochanan Sandler says that he's never allowed to eat it. Only other people allowed to eat it. And if it was done intentionally, then no one is allowed to eat it, even after Shabbos. Gemara says, Kasha de Reb Meir, Kasha de Rabbi Yehuda. Contradiction in Reb Meir's opinion is a contradiction in Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Do we say that we impose the same fine on the unintentional as the intentional? Gemara says to Reb Meir, like Kasha, and Reb Meir, it's not a question because tikanis. When did we impose the fine, which is what we did by hezek shein and nicker? We said both of them. That's b'derabbanan. That's only because it's rabbinic law, and by rabbinic law, we want to make sure that people don't take it lightly. So we have to make it even extra strict. But b'deraisa, but if it's a biblical law, like cooking on Shabbos, then we don't need to impose a fine. No one's going to do it and b'meiz it and say that he did it b'shegig. We don't have to impose that fine. Gemara says 1 second, but stirring wine for avodah zarah is not a rabbinic law. That's a biblical prohibition. Gemara says, well, that's different. Over there, it's avodah zarah. Over there, because it's, even though it's biblical, but because it's so strict, we impose a fine even on a shegig. Rabbi Yehuda, like Kasha, how are we going to answer Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yehuda? It says, Kilei kanes. When does Rabbi Yehuda say that we don't impose the fine, which is what he does by hezek shein and nicker? He doesn't impose the fine That's only because that's only rabbinic law. But b'deraisa, but when it comes to Shabbos, kanis, he does impose the fine. The Gemara says, "Menasech deraisa v'lei kanis." But when he's mixing, stirring the wine for avodah zarah, that's a prohibition, and when we don't impose the fine, because it's so strict, avodah zarah, that no one would ever do that anyway. So we don't have to impose the fine for avodah zarah. Exactly the opposite logic. Because everyone stays away from avodah zarah, you don't have to impose the fine. You have to leave it over here. We're up to Virami Derab Meir B'Deiraisa. Okay. Have a good day, everyone.